wanted to talk to you a little bit about this project that's in the shop. And it's one that I finished up the LS swaps, suspension brakes, all that stuff, modernizing, got it on the road December of 2022. And I got it knocked out, and then there were some things that we said, you know, you might want to address these later on down the road. But I wanted to get it back to Lewis before Christmas. Make it special for him, let him enjoy it for a little while, as well as see what else he wanted to do. Wasn't sure how much he was going to drive it, wasn't sure how far he'd drive it at a time or whatever. And as things kind of evolved, the first thing we did is we brought it back for the rear suspension. Front suspension is all CPP Mustang 2 front clip. It's a front cross member with the unequal length control arms, 13-inch disc brakes. Nice setup, real nice setup. Rack and pinion steering, power, all that good stuff. But the rear, we reused the stock narrow leaf springs with the steel bushings and all that, you know, greasable type stuff. Just old technology. Not only old, but just slap wore out. And you'd go around corners, and as soon as you went around a corner, it would just kind of bump, and then it just felt like it was sliding the whole time, almost like when you're in a boat and you turn and you get that kind of sliding feel. And then if you hit bumps, it sounded like the whole back end was going to fall out from under it, as well as rattle around, move around, all that stuff. So I went ahead and we did that. I had some S10 leaf springs, and I fabricated the front hanger, and then also the upper mount for the rear shackle I fabricated. And it was all because I really didn't like the kits. They set it really high, and also I wanted to buy stuff that literally if you could go to the parts store or to the junkyard and get if you needed to in the future. So that's why I went with S10 stuff. Today, spring hangers. Not pretty, but good and functional. Oh, there. Big difference in width. Here, let's see if you can see that. So old leaf springs were, I believe, 1.5, 1 3/4 inches, and the new ones are 2.5. Then over here, got the diff sitting on these giant stands. I bought those when I used to work on cement mixers, and I'd do some suspension work on them. They've been sitting outside collecting dust, and I finally found a use for them. So kind of excited about that. We got one leaf spring sitting in here, and I use ratchet straps to kind of pull it in place, and it's roughly where it needs to be. But I need to get this other spring off of here, and you can see how horrible those things are. Steel bushings, grease fittings, old tech, just horrible. But we wanted to get it on the road and make it work for a little while without it just going to jail for every last detail. So we're doing it now. He's had it since Christmas, and it's second week in March now. Let's see, what is today? March 6th. So he's had it for a little while, put about 1,000 miles on it, and he's real happy with it. Got a few tweaks we need to do. And there's one of the spring hangers that hopefully y'all can see this. That is a ton of play. Should make quite a bit of handling difference. So these are going to be the rear spring shackle bushing brackets. So like that. Whoops. But you got round hole in a square hole. Took it over here, welded it up after pressing it in, grind it down a little bit, clean it up. Bushings will drop right in there, and we'll come right over here. This will set right in here. We'll weld it here, gusset it up to the frame. Nice and simple. Bam, done. Pretty sure that'll work just fine. Should be the last update on this one. I'm gonna space the shocks a little bit to give the new sway bar some room. Got the bracket for that, which is real easy. Springs are in. Just gotta set it on the ground, tighten the bolts, and it's done. But that sway bar should make a nice handling difference. Whoops. Kick the tools around. Shackles ready to go. Don't hate on my welds, guys. Never had one break, but it's not going to win any shows. Luckily, it's under the car. Awesome. Rear springs are all done. I initially went with S10 shocks and mounted them inboard of the frame, made a cross member, mounted them there, and they worked fine with the stock springs. Then as soon as we changed everything, the geometry changed just enough where the shocks, rather than being a little bit of an angle, as that differential traveled up, they would lay, I mean, at a very, very sharp angle, which isn't giving you any dampening, and they didn't have enough travel. And we cut the shock mounts off the frame that were initially there for the stock shocks on that 54. And all I did is I took those and moved them to the rear, and then looked at shocks that were the right length and everything, and odd enough, 1954 GMC, perfect length, perfect everything, plus they mounted up top no problem. Went ahead and got those. I took the rear shock plate, turned it around, and then the shock mount for the bottom was right there where it needed to be. So instead of inboard and forward, it was outboard and back. Got that done. We're going to change where the shocks mount this time, and we're going to mount them. I'm probably going to use this factory mount. I'm going to cut it off the frame and put it back here, and then go to a different style shock to get a better shock angle on it. And then, all right, guys, we got this all ground down. Those cold rivets, whatever. I don't know why I call them that, but anyways. So basically all you do is just get up behind it after you're done grinding the rivets out, and then beat the crud out of it. Use your purse. There we go. And you can knock those out if you want to, but I mean, there's nothing behind those. Let me feel there. Yeah, there's absolutely nothing there, so I don't think I'm gonna mess with them. Like new. Powder coat in a can. That really tamed down that rear suspension. The rattles and everything stopped. The other thing we wanted to do was the gear ratio. It had this little bit of annoyance for Lewis. And again, Lewis is a particular person. Sometimes he has a problem voicing exactly what he wants or what he likes when it comes to cars especially. He's a car guy, but he's not a technical guy when it comes to cars. I've known Lewis for years. We've been friends for probably close to 15 years. And I tell you, we'll get to talking cars and everything, and if you can just bring it down to the bottom shelf where it's common vernacular, everything's great. But some of the stuff he was trying to explain, it just wasn't jiving to me. But he explained how when he would be driving down the road, sometimes it would take off and go no problem, and then sometimes it just felt like RPMs were going, and he said he wasn't sure if the transmission was slipping or if it was something else going on. Well, when I go drive it, I'm watching, I hook up my scan tool and I'm watching data, and we'd get it into those parts, different speeds and throttle positions he was describing. So basically what it was doing is it was dropping down into first gear under low cruise, and with the 373 gears, it would just blow the tires off. It doesn't have a whole lot of tire underneath it. It's a 235, and we didn't want to sacrifice the cost of a tire if you have to replace them. I mean, he's not tracking the car, he's not racing the car. So it's just a cruiser, that he can just zip around every once in a while, maybe do a burnout, maybe, do a roll race every once in a while if someone pulls up beside him and gets brave. But, so we ended up going with a 342 gear. My Blazer has a 342 gear, and I've been looking at different stuff as I'm going to build my drag and drive car. And my ideal gear ratio is a 390, which they don't make in a common over-the-shelf 8.5 10-bolt gear ratio. Well, a 373 is pretty close, 410 is pretty close. So I'm going to go with one of those, but I thought I don't need this 342 that's in it. So I donated it to him. Well, we're on Lose 54 here, and we got the diff torn down completely. There's the current gear set that was in it, and that's a 373 gear. And what we're going to over here, we have a 342 gear set. So the 373, it was just at low cruise when you mashed it, when it downshifted into first, is a little unruly. Light, small, and it would jump up, especially with that steep first gear in a 4L60. So we're dialing it in, dialing it back just a hair, and think what you might, but hey, it's all about what a person likes. And if it's one of those things that kind of bugs you when you drive it, then you won't like your vehicle. So we're going to make it where Lewis likes it. From there, we're also going to put different U-joints in. This one had a combo U-joint in it, where it was the smaller 3RS joint and then a 1350 on the other cross. And I didn't like it, so we're going to dial that in, make it right. But yeah, here we go. We've also got a spot here on this cross member where you can see when that suspension really bottoms, it hits right there. The drive shaft was smacking, the yoke was smacking right there. So we're going to cut that out. We're going to use the old trusty plasma cutter here. We'll get that knocked out. While we got this thing, we're going to go ahead and do some service work. Got the transpan dropped, but new U-joints, new yoke, all that stuff. I had this sucker up to down in Mexico 91 miles an hour, and everything was stable. No more driveline vibrations. Cruise RPM's a little lower, right where we wanted it with that 342 gear. So no parts charged for that one. Once we got that done, that's things kind of started coming together where it felt really good now. It always felt like an old car with a lot of power, but it stopped good, and there were a few other little issues that it would deal with, and anybody who's had a classic car, you love them, you love cruising around, you really like looking at them, but if it doesn't drive nice, you just kind of get tired of dealing with it. So in the process, we ended up doing a few other things for Lewis. The cab felt sloppy, so once we got the rear suspension all done, you go around a corner, it felt really good, but you still had a little bit of this, uneasy feeling, just body roll going on. Cab mounts were original. I mean, 1954 to 2024, that's 70 years. Things are 70 years old. There's nothing left of them. Here's those cab mounts. It's got this cantilever set up, and then I don't even know if you can get to the one up here. Not very easy, of course, but There's one over here. Yeah, it's just a bolt that goes through there with a pad of rubber. And then here's the other cantilever. You can see how far out that is. And then this one, how it's more vertical. So that's what was my first instinct to say, yeah, those are shot. So hopefully that'll dial them in a little bit and keep it from swaying. There we go. We got the one side out, and yeah, I think we can reuse those. What do you think? Glue that back together, a little JB, maybe some rubber cement. Let's glue that one back together. It's still round-ish. Odd enough, Summit's got them. Go to Summit Racing, I tell you, it's amazing what they have. You know, so in stock, not just have them available, they had them in stock. Run over to Arlington, get the mounts. If you could have an unlimited day of shopping at one place, only one place, where would it be? I'll go first. Yeah, so here's the new ones. I think we're going to be in a little better shape. So hopefully it straightens those out, but we're about to find out. So we'll put those in, and they just set in here like so. Boom. One goes in the back side, and then I'll grease the bolts up because that's what's going to pivot. And then it's not even really bolts, it's this plate. Almost looks like a shackle for rear springs, rear leaf springs. But yeah, they're not worn or anything, so I think I'm gonna just sand them down a little bit and get the rust off of them. Throw a little bit of silicone grease on it so they won't squeak or nothing, and they won't eat through nothing, and then toss them back together. Well, here's the old pads, and they're pretty flat. Let's compare them to the new pad, which is bigger and thicker. It doesn't do a whole lot, you know, for cushion or anything, because these just bolt straight on. It's just a piece of rubber, but it came with them, so I thought I'd do it. There you go. New bolts too. This side is rusted and stuck. Here, let's get up here. Right there, and the other side is loose and done. Ouch, just hit my head, and they just slip right up in there between the body and the frame. So we'll put them in, call it done. This ought to be slightly sketchy. That's up under there, and now we got a nice gap right there. We need a little more. Let's get all that done. I go out for a drive again. I'm like, wow, this thing is awesome. If Lewis ever gets rid of it, I get first dibs. I tell you that, car, that truck drives pretty stinking amazing. It handles good now, it drives good, it gives you that confident feeling while you're driving. So we're all done mechanical wise, everything. One of the things that Lewis talked about when we first said, yeah, we're going to LS swap it, and he said, hey, I'm going to daily drive this thing, or I'm going to keep it and drive it. I said, okay. He says, well, what would it take to do cruise control? And, you know, I got, 4 cars with cruise control. I don't use it. I just don't. I never do. I'm usually hauling a trailer. That's part of the reason. But I just don't use cruise control. But hey, again, it's all about what somebody wants. So, you know, like I said, I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit. I thought he was joking at first. Well, he wasn't, you know, and it, again, it's important. What does he want in the car? So I went ahead midway. I had the harness just about built for this car, roughed in, and he said that, and I said, you know what? That's going to be a pain with a cruise module and all this other stuff, or go aftermarket module, you know, ugly stuff, more garbage to bolt onto the firewall or under the hood. I said, you know, if we go throttle by wire, the factory throttle by wire with the TAC module, that TAC module makes it where the cruise comes off the TAC module. It has a brake light switch, it has a couple of enable switches, and then also it talks to the ECM and knows what you're doing. So I said, you know, that would make it real easy. I mean, literally, it's 4 wires. That's it, 4 extra wires. So back in 2023, I just went ahead and wound everything up, zip tied it, tucked it up under the dash, and then put some tape around it and labeled it cruise. Stuffed it under there, didn't think anything else about it. Well, then when he said, hey, can we do that while you have it? Yeah, I remembered, oh yeah, we've already got it wired, basically. Well, up under the dash here, all the wiring I've got tucked under there, and I pulled it through, ran it across here. Sorry, dirty lens. Imagine that while you're working on something better. And this is the cruise wiring. So it all comes off the ECM. We get everything from the ECM, and it's 4 wires, I believe is all that it is. I may need to run another power wire just so it signals something. I can't remember if it's power or ground. I'll figure it out. But anyways, that's it. Putting the glove box back in so that I can, I had to fish the wiring around and went ahead and loomed it up so it's on a separate circuit, and sort of pretty even though you can't see it. But yeah, that's kind of how I'll roll. So here's what we're working with to do cruise. I've got my flags put on all the wires. There's 4 wires here, and I'll have to run a 12 volt source. And those, let's see, one's cruise on, one's resume accelerate, one's I can't remember, whatever they're called. Then I've got my wiring diagram here, but make it even easier, I've got my scan tool, and I'm watching cruise data here. So if you go here, cruise control active, let's see, cruise control on off switch. So these basically, let's see if I can do this with one hand. Or what I'll do is I'm going to take my power probe here, and we're going to shoot power to those, and then we'll see what each one is and then label it. So, and now let's see what goes active when we turn this on. So see how that goes on right there? Cruise on off is going to go on, I think, no matter what. But if you look there, that is cruise resume accelerator. So that's resume and accelerate. So let's label that. So that one I've got RA, resume accelerate. So we'll go through the process, look on the scan tool on each one, label them, then we know what we're going to hook to. Well, the other part, I didn't want to put, the dash is so, it's only like this deep, and it's just small. You don't want to clutter it up with a bunch of garbage with a bunch of switches and all this stuff. Well, it's got this factory wiper switch up on top of the dash. We're not doing anything with it. It used to, you turned it, and it activated a vacuum switch, which made the wipers go. Well, I ended up finding a push-pull switch and was able to thread that factory knob and put it on there. So really, it's kind of incognito. You don't even see it. It's there, and it's there on every truck. So it's kind of hidden, and it's a push-pull. So you just reach up there, pop, lift it up, it's on. The other switch that was already in the dash is this had a heater on it, and the heater had a 2-speed switch. So it was just, 3 position, up for low, down for high, and that was it. And it hung under the dash. So you had 2 fan speeds through the switch. I thought, well, there's a switch position right there. So I put a 2-way momentary contact switch, so up and down. So now down is set and decelerate, up is resume and accelerate. So now we're good. Brake lights, if you tap the brakes, cruise goes off, or you hit that button, the on off, and it turns off. I thought, okay, we wired it all in, and I did some testing, making sure that what wires went where, and got that all taken care of, put it together, took it down the road. First time, worked like a champ. I was really, I guess a little bit, I was a little bit surprised it worked first time, but why wouldn't it? But any of you guys out there, you're doing cars and you're building them and stuff, sometimes you look at stuff and you go, I hope this works. But it wouldn't work. So we used that spot for the on-off. Cruise is on. Now this old heater control, we just take it, boom, cruise engaged. You can see we're cruising between 65 and 70, staying steady. Nothing on the pedals, there's my foot. Gotta love it. While we got this thing, we're gonna go ahead and do some service work. Got the transpan dropped, and we'll get the trans service done. We'll get the oil change done, grease up the ball joints and stuff. I think these have, yeah, they're greasable. So we'll get all that done, and we already rotated the tires. It's going in Tuesday for an alignment, and we can let Lewis have it back. So we should be good to go. Looking forward to having this one back on the road. He's looking forward to having it, and he's selling his other 2 cars, so that's his daily. Kind of cool. Here's a look in the pan. I think my rebuild's going well. Usually if there's a problem, you'll see it pretty fast. Okay, here's the filter. Cut it open. And be careful, this stuff's sharp when you cut it open. But yeah, you can see down in there, there ain't nothing in there. That thing's clean. I checked the filter media. There's not a spec 1 on there. That is excellent news. Sometimes you'll see 1 or 2 specs, especially on a fresh motor, or like where you install cam bearings. When you install the cam bearings, a little bit peels off the inside edge. You might see something, but I mean, I'm seeing 0, nothing. That's excellent. So anyhow, that's good. I'm happy with that. We've got new filter on there. Whoa. I do believe we got a dirty lens. Sorry. Oh, maybe a little better. Let's get a paper towel here. Walk through my mess. More mess. Is that better? Let's see. It might just be the backlight. Okay. Anyway, we got new filter on there. No leaks, no nothing. I didn't see. New transmission filter in. And we're all drained and ready to go. We're going to drop it down, fill it up. We've already greased lower ball joints and the tie rods. And then we'll get up top when we're lowering it down and do the upper ball joints. Yeah, I think we are pretty well done with this one. He loves it. When he got here, we went out for a drive. And I tell you, Lewis is one of those that he'll constantly tell me, this is no punch on your work. This is no, I'm not putting your work down. I promise you I'm not. But he'd tell me what he thought, and he'd tell me these things. And I appreciate that. He gives me that feedback. We get back, and Lewis didn't say anything. He's just like, wow, this is what I wanted in December when you finished. Well, December, I mean, that was 2 years ago. And granted, 2 years ago, and I'd work on it, I'd do something here, I did the leaf springs. I did the leaf springs in March of 23, and then we had a couple little electrical gremlins and things. I did a couple of things during 2023, but the rest of it, we decided, okay, let's get it one more time. Let's get the rest of it taken care of. So you probably already noticed the body doesn't,
yeah,
it doesn't feel like you're in a boat.
Much more stable.
Yes. 55 right there.
Yeah.
And you're, what, at 1300 RPM?
Yes.
Yeah. So quite a bit lower RPM. So let's hop on 67. We're going to do my 12-mile loop.
Okay.
So we'll go through Keene here. This is the beautiful metropolis of Keene.
You don't want to do this yet?
Nah, not yet. I'll show you when we get up to speed there so you can surely appreciate it. But yeah, see how I put that factory wiper knob on it.
Yeah,
I tapped it so it would work, drilled it and tapped it. And then it's still got the bezel around this that says heat. So it's as incognito as I could make it.
I like it a lot.
Good. Good, good. Yes. Drives fairly straight, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Well, unfortunately, it's been long enough that
You don't remember. You would let go of the wheel and it would just literally like take you off into the ditch.
But I mean, it's riding so good, nothing's standing out.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
That is good. That is good. This just it goes right on the freeway here, Lewis. So
What did you say? 70?
yes. There it is. All right, now you can lift that knob and then click this down. Just go click. And then if you want to change your speed, down will set it, will make it slower. Up will make it go faster. One mile an hour for each click.
Good.
Yep.
Right at 2,000, a little under 2,000.
What, 70?
RPM, yep. Well,
Yep.
it's 70, 71.
Not bad.
Oh, it's
Whole different animal, isn't it?
sounds really good.
It does. It really does. This was just literally fight, trying to figure out what's going on and kept trying different things. Changed the gear set out, took it for a drive, and I thought, then it's like, let's get rid of that combination U-joint where it had the two different size crosses. So I put that yoke on there, and I said, well, if I'm going to do that, let's put sealed U-joints on front and back. New good Spicer joints, which are like best you can buy commercially, just at the store. So I popped those on there, and I was like, oh wow, oh my goodness. You're gonna like that cruise, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. I'm about the only one in my family that uses cruises all the time.
Your up will resume that speed if you want to.
Okay.
So whatever you were going, and it'll take off and do its thing.
What's causing that?
You're not doing anything?
Yeah.
Knucklehead. Make a guy panic.
This is where I lay rubber, right?
The
RPM when you're going at speed.
So we got the gear ratio right.
Yep, gear ratio's right, handling's right, idle's right, I think. AC,
Good.
it's awesome.
You know what? I'm glad to hear that, because normally every time we mess with something, it's been, I love it, but there's these things. The list keeps getting shorter, but this is the first time you didn't give me a list. Woohoo!
I think we're there, man. We dialed it in. You dialed it in.
Excellent. He was ecstatic. I would be too. He said, I don't have anything to add to the list.
That's big.
That's big. Especially Lewis is a type A personality.
He wants it.
And
just
he was
right.
ecstatic.
Yeah.
I'm truly happy now.
Driving it a lot, and he's enjoyed it. He tells me all the time when I talk to him, he enjoys it. He loves it. So I'm really happy for him. I'm happy that one's, I guess, complete and finally on its way out and complete. You know, I mean, things could go wrong. Any project car stuff could go wrong, but I do believe that's the last we're going to see of that one. Maybe not on the channel, but in the shop for any length of time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Stay tuned. We got a couple future projects coming.
So if you saw on the channel, we went and picked up a 77 crew cab, square body, big boy truck in Arizona. This is what's going in it. So this is a 30 over 5.3 with all forged pistons and rods, good set of 243 heads, good valve train, and all that. Then we've got this 4L80E, and this one is built way overbuilt for what we're going to do with it. And those two things are going in there. And then if you can envision here what would sit right here and right here and look like a couple of small hair dryers. That's what we got coming. Stay tuned.